Hi, I'm JJ. Welcome or welcome back. This month I did a bunch of group reads or buddy reads and stuff, and so I did two buddy reads with Saracen over at Saracen Salute, and also Doug, who doesn't have his own channel, but he joined us as well. And we read Franke, The Diary of a Young Girl, as well as Leap of Faith by Queen Noor. I'll start with Leap of Faith. So that was a reread for me, and I was wanting to read it this time around so that we could talk about it back and forth with Saracen's point of view, coming from the Middle East, because Queen Noor was the Queen of Jordan. She married King Hussein, and she was an Arab American woman from the United States, kind of elite family, who got to marry the queen and was thrust kind of into Jordanian politics and Middle Eastern politics and stuff. And so you get her point of view. And when I read it when I was much younger, I probably read it like 20 years ago. And so that was when it first came out, and I liked it because it taught me how to see things differently. I didn't know much about the Middle East, so I took her point of view on things, trying to understand it and stuff. And I did my own research prior to, but that was the first time I actually wanted to and realized that some of the things I was learning in school was maybe not accurate. What my discussions with Doug and Saracen made me realize this time around was that it's still a Western perspective. And you can tell that there's a lot of propaganda in it as she's trying to justify her side of things, but not for unbiased or even for the nations that surround her and that she was dealing with, but almost like Western skewed sentimentality. And he kept pointing out that there's all these different rumors and stuff that her husband was working with the CIA and all that stuff. And so like I tried to read it with that in mind. It still was an enjoyable read for me. I think a lot of that was the nostalgia. Her writing is very easy to digest and to get through. She writes rapidly, but she is coming from very elite perspective. Even before she was married into Middle Eastern royalty, she, vacationed with family in Europe and skiing and all that stuff. And she knew a bunch of famous people, and her parents, her dad in particular, worked for a bunch of different presidents. So she wasn't coming at it from our like everyday life perspective. She was coming at it from an elite perspective, and it was almost written geared towards that, like a virtue signaling thing. But you still get kind of current events. A lot of the players are still the same within Middle Eastern politics. So you still have our United States president getting involved where they shouldn't be. You still have Netanyahu, I can never say his name, I don't even really care, who keeps causing problems on the Israeli side. And then you get her and her husband's like optimism as they're trying to have peace in the US, but always from their point of view being thwarted by other organizations, other countries, other agencies and stuff like that. So it was interesting. What always amuses me when I'm reading books, like from her point of view or reading about some of the US presidents and stuff, is how the rich people or the people in power are always gifting animals, like huge animals, and just the amount of random wild animals that have called the White House their home over the years astounds me and fascinates me. And that was no different from her story, and how they kept getting gifted these huge wild animals as well. What was interesting is she always would talk about the, coming to the aid of the Palestinian refugees, but then she also backhanded the PLO and Yasser Arafat for what he was trying to do. So this time around, I felt like I've come from a much different place of understanding when I was reading the book. And so it just was interesting to see how I've changed, and how the years have taught me to try to look a little bit more deeply. And even if I didn't catch things that Saracen kept pointing out, as soon as he did, it made sense, or I was able to see it within, between the lines and stuff. So that's why I really enjoy these group reads and stuff like that. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I wanted to. So when they were talking about what she was trying to do to help the Palestinian refugees at the time, so King Hussein died in early 2000. This was written, I think, like 2005 or that era. So it was, talking about all the, the politics and stuff leading up to the, year 2000 and not the last like 20 years or so. But it's kind of interesting now where she kept talking about wanting peace and trying to wonder if the monarchy would survive and stuff. And then his son did take over and is still the king of Jordan. And now you're dealing with the Syrian refugees, and they don't let a lot of them in. I've been reading a lot of Syrian books, and they specifically say that, Jordan would not allow all those refugees in, which is really interesting since you're talking about and hearing Queen Noor's previous perspective about trying to help all of the Palestinian refugees, and wondering where they would stand on it now, and if they would also turn away the refugees. I don't know, like the common era. We were more discussing the book itself and not what the Jordanian politics of the time are right now. So that is interesting for me to see the huge distinction between the then and now of what Jordan is doing for their neighbors and stuff. And then the other book is The Diary of Anne Frank. I had read and heard a lot of quotes throughout, my life, especially, in school and stuff, but never actually read the whole book. And so I found it very interesting. You get to see Anne grow up. She starts out as this kid who, they have to go into hiding, her and her older sister and her mom and dad, with another family, and then eventually another stranger, like their dentist or like the friend, or their friend's dentist or something, comes in, and how a whole bunch of strangers have to try to cohabitate in the midst of terror that's going around them, knowing that they could get found out at any time, and what that would truly be like. And what I didn't realize at the time is I always, hearing the quotes and stuff and hearing talked about, I guess I'd never really realized that it was in a functioning office building that they were hiding. I always thought it was in a family's home. So it was her father's functioning business. And so there were people in and out, many of whom were the ones who were helping them. But within there still was people at the warehouse that were not involved with their hiding and that they had to hide from, and just like the cleaners and the guards and stuff around the area. So there was a lot of danger to the ones who were specifically helping them as well. And I never really got that, the gravity of that, the first time around when I was hearing about it throughout the years. So you get her thoughts and her reflections. When the diary first starts, they had not been in hiding yet. She had just had her birthday. She's talking about, school and her friends and a boy that she might have a crush on and all that stuff. And then when she's in hiding, she's doing the day-to-day life of what they have to do, how they have to keep quiet, how they have to wait for the people to let them know that it's safe to get out of hiding and kind of go about the day, make some dinner and stuff like that, the rations that they had, but also all the bickering and how disappointed she was in her parents, her mother in particular. She never really got along with her. She didn't feel seen or understood. And just the point of, she was 13 to 15 when she was writing this, and just the 13-year-old being trapped in with a bunch of adults because her sister and the son of the family that stayed with them were older than her. And so, they're expecting her to be like they are. She's not a child in their eyes anymore. And Doug had to point this out to me, is that the idea of teenagers and, still not quite being an adult is a new phenomenon. That back then, they, once they were out of being children, they were adults, and therefore, they could go to work, they were treated as such, and they were seen as such. And so, in Anne's point of view, she doesn't sync with the other family. She just feels so disconnected, and we see that as a child just trying to grasp what's the horrors around her, seeking comfort from parents, and just trying to understand the world, but the parents being just as terrified as she is and not being able to give her that comfort she needs, that stability that she needs. And so they're nitpicking on her. They're taking out all their anxieties and stuff on each other. And as a child that we see her as, she doesn't quite understand that. And so she's deeply hurt by this mistreatment of her, which is really interesting to read about as she ages and grows and starts to be more reflective of the fact that they were also scared too, the fact that nobody really knows what's going on, the fact that they are really actually strangers who have to rely on each other for their safety, and how terrifying that alone would be, to not know if you can trust the people that you're among, but also not the, you fully trust the people who are risking their lives for you, but also being scared for them because of the fact that they're risking their lives, and knowing that you could be the reason that they get caught, the reason that they're killed or hurt or tortured or imprisoned or whatever. And just the idea of living in that day to day for over 2 years is just so haunting. And she talks about the break-ins and how every time the danger gets closer and closer, and they're just sure that they're going to be caught. And I can't believe anyone has to live like that. And then the fact that it's still going on today, with what, ICE is doing here in the United States. But Saracen also pointed out that the teenagers now reading the story would understand the isolation that she felt just because of the COVID lockdown that we had in 2020 and a little bit beyond. There's this newfound understanding of the plight of the world out there is scary, but how alone you feel inside and isolated, cut off, not knowing when it's going to end, not knowing if you're going to get sick too. All that stuff would make people who are growing up now and reading her story, knowing the world that we live in and seeing what's happening with ICE, living through COVID and all that, would really make them understand Anne's story a little bit more. And I had read not long ago, it's a nonfiction book called People Love Dead Jews, and it was about how we as a society, as the world, likes to keep bringing up all the different afflictions and catastrophes that were brought upon the Jews, and how we point that out time and time again, all the different ways that we, whether, genocides or just horrible treatment, discrimination, all throughout the ages. And yet, the ones who are living now amongst us, especially with what Israel is doing, in actually endangering the Jews worldwide, because of how badly they're making the world hate what they're doing, that it's reflecting on the Jews all over. It's just giving them more and more ill treatment and things to be scared of, and how little we still seem to care about those who are living, and how we still read and focus and discuss all the ones in the past, and the idea of Anne even being aware that people were caring about the diaries that Jews wrote back in this time, because so many of them were being killed. And so she wrote hers, towards the end, as she's growing and becoming more and more reflective, is writing knowing that maybe someday, if she gets caught and stuff, her book might be, her diary might be read. And it almost feels to me like she's censoring herself in a way, kind of almost writing for an audience, not so much writing about the bickering anymore, and writing more positively and reflectively, as if trying to make her suffering more palatable to us, because unfortunately, as a society, we tend to continue to victim blame, whether it's women or even any, people of color and stuff. It's always their fault that this plight is on them. And even leaders like, Martin Luther King Jr. were more palatable to us as a society than Malcolm X and Assata Shakur with their anger. And the idea that she might censor herself and some of her anger and her hurt, and instead makes herself in a way more palatable with her optimism. And it's not saying that she wasn't optimistic to begin with. There are so many quotes, especially that we always learn about, is her quotes about nature and the human capacity. She's always grateful for the ones who are helping her out and stuff. But it almost just also seems that she's aware. She's aware that she might be later put under a microscope. And so I even liked the part at the very, towards the end, when she was talking about what religion means to her, and how she does want to basically be judged by what you're doing in the wholeness of your life, and not what your actual belief is. And if we all went to bed each night going over how we treated each other, what we would, how we would evaluate ourselves going into each day, if that would then make us better people. And she believed that it would. And so she had so much insight, and it was just, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to find some of the, I didn't highlight the pages. I didn't want to wreck them, but I did, tab a bunch of them. But she also had some humor. Like, one of my favorite lines was when, she kind of is getting interested in the boy that's staying with them, Peter. Patel, I can't ever, she says Patel and Peter, and then I get confused because there's two boys that she's referencing, one that from the past and then one now. But she talks about, him being interested in her, and she's like, it's not like I'm conceited, I'm merely vain. And I think she's so witty and fun, and she is likable and hard strong, and, or, like headstrong, and just wanting to learn. They had to read a lot. They were trying to take classes. She was trying to learn other languages. She was trying to learn and stay ahead of her classes in case when the war ends and they can resume and not be held back a year. They even started learning shorthand by a, like, basically course that the people who were taking care of them brought in for her to learn, and just stuff like that. She was always she was a kid, and she was just trying to figure out what she liked, what she was interested in, what she wanted to do with her life, what she wanted to learn. And I really did enjoy it, and I am glad that I read it. And along with this, even though it wasn't part of a buddy read, I read this alongside The Ghostwriter by Philip Roth. And that is basically reimagining if Anne had actually ended up surviving, even though the world thought she was dead, and her diary was already very famous. They were making plays about it and her because, like I said, for some reason we want to cling to this story. And what would that mean for Anne who lived? She could never go back to being herself. Also living, realizing that only your father was alive and he already grieved for you. Do you want to find him again? Do you want to have the freedom of just being someone else? Do you want to know that you were being judged and performed by the world for the whole world to see? And just that idea of it is so much more meaningful that she died at the end rather than that she lived, because we needed a martyr. We needed somebody to make us care. And that idea alone is so sad and so heartbreaking and haunting that I feel like the way that Philip Roth explored that was phenomenal. I didn't overly enjoy his writing style at first because the way he describes women in general and interactions with women is not at all something that I'm interested in. But I kept with it, and when they got to the part about the idea of maybe if Anne had survived, what would that have looked like, was absolutely phenomenal, especially when I was considering the fact that we care more because she died than what if she had lived. And I guess I wasn't the only one who thought that way because he wrote a whole book about it. Anyway, I feel like I said a lot without saying anything at all. But I do recommend, if you haven't actually read this book, and then if you do have time and do want to do interesting kind of thought analysis with it, go ahead and read The Ghostwriter as well. Anyway, thank you, Saracen and Doug, for doing this with me. And I hope that, Saracen, when you do yours, I'm sure yours is going to be a lot more interesting and coherent. So I look forward to it. Thank you, and happy reading.